And live.
Hello and welcome to the Northside Baseball Podcast. I am your host today, Jason Ross. Normally, I'm the guy in the co-pilot seat, but today I'm going to be the maestro of the microphone. I'm going to be the prince of the podcast. It's me, Jason Ross, here with my friend Jeremy. Jeremy, I'm glad to have you here with me today,
Thank you.
and I'm excited to talk some Cubs baseball. So I don't think we should start anywhere else other than one place. What'd you think about the game last night?
Really.
You there, Jeremy? Okay. Well, at least I can tell you about how I thought about the baseball game. I feel like we are in a safe place right now. So I'm gonna admit something that if you're out there listening, please don't judge me too much for what I'm about to say, because again, safe place. So I am back at school, working with my middle schoolers right now, so I'm a little exhausted. Played a baseball game on Sunday, 96-degree heat. We lost by 10. It was a long day. So last night rolls around. I'm loving the baseball game. It's a good game. It's 5-4. Cubs tie it up 5-5. At this point, I feel like, you know what, I'm going to go lay down in the bed, watch the last little bit on my phone. And the last thing that I consciously remember was bases loaded, Justin Webb pitching, mound visit, and then my brain shut off and I passed out. So I missed all of the best parts of last night. So like I said, safe place. Don't judge me. I'm staring 40 down the barrel right now, and it was brutal last night. How did you feel about it last night, Jeremy?
It's hard to deny the MVP, like, just pounding on the door at this point. What a game to start and finish it with a home run. And this was just like the White Sox are a pretty good team. This was a pretty well played game. I mean, you don't love to see Zephyr John, who was, high price at the deadline, kind of blow that one in the eighth. But if you go back and look, none of those are strikes. Right, they're all up above the zone. Clearly, like, the White Sox are just aggressive on fastballs up. Those aren't necessarily bad pitches. I don't. Maybe bad game planning. They were expecting that, but the execution wasn't poor.
I don't even think it was bad game planning. If you look at Benintendi's whiff zone, that's where he swings and misses. Like, he's terrible at fastballs in the upper third.
Right.
Zephyr John blew him away with a fastball right there, and that's a pitch that blows him away, I think, most of the time. And it sucks that it didn't happen. I think if you want to blame, it was probably the walks before then. Like
it was the leadoff walk to start that inning, right? That's what does it. And otherwise, it's a solo home run, which
Yeah, and I don't want to take credit for this. This is a Greg Zumach thing. So, Greg, if you're out there listening, I'm gonna just kind of parrot an idea you've had. Is that I think somebody's got to teach this guy the kick change. Teach Zephyr John the kick change, because with the sweeper fastball kick change combo, I think his big weakness right now is lefties. So if you can start to beat up on lefties with Zephyr John, I think the rest of it's gonna kind of follow through.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't know if you saw Mike Petriello posted about his usage of his fastball.
Yes.
It's insane how much different the Cubs have already asked him usage-wise to be. And they have him under control for multiple more seasons. So I think that's probably what I would guess is the game plan for this offseason, is honing in on like a kick change or something to really offset the lefties.
Yes, he really needs something like that. But his fastball, I mean, it is wild. That was the first home run he's given up on a fastball all season and only the sixth hit. I mean, it is his ability to throw the fastball by guys. Even, I mean, I don't know if you looked at his StatCast page, but like he throws it right down the middle. Like, it's a right down Broadway fastball that gets 40% whiffs and has barely been hit all year. So wild to think that the one time it gets knocked was a pitch at it was a strike on the very top third of that zone, just barely in there, and Benintendi went up and got it. So that is wild.
Yeah, kudos. I mean, that's a 1 out of 100 play, right?
Right. Absolutely wild. So, I think kind of bouncing off of that, I think we should probably really talk about Pete Crow-Armstrong in his MVP candidacy. It's a lot of the talk out there. Originally, it wasn't even on our rundown today. And then I messaged you early this morning, and I said, listen, we can't start the show talking anything else. No. That was a special game from Pete last night. It hit the first pitch of the game and the last pitch of the game as home runs. And, I anytime it's a walk-off, it's always the last pitch of the game. But there seems just to be a beautiful story there. So I guess where I'll start is, Jeremy, what do you think his chances are right now to win the MVP award? Like, if you were going to be a handicapper, like, give me a percent. What are you thinking?
Man, I think it's like 70% is what I would say. I could be off there. That's the odds I would give it. I mean, Shohei is not going to pitch the rest of the year, it looks like. So that definitely diminishes. And I do think there's going to be some voter fatigue there, where like there's a different option. He isn't pitching this year, and let's vote for somebody else and give the trophy to somebody else this year. And I know like Matt Olson's having a great season, but it's just when the lights are brightest, he delivers these statements like over and over and over again when it matters. And like, avoiding these mini slumps that he has, and just putting great at-bats together over and over and over again, which is difficult to do when you're 23,
Yeah. I mean, he's had an awesome season. If we're looking at, and it's a little unfair because, Shohei has the pitching with it as well. But if we're just looking at, FWAR leaders right now, I mean, he's at 8.2, and the next closest is Bobby Witt Jr. at 5.9. He's over 2 wins over the next closest hitter right now. What he is doing is unbelievable. The only Cub hitter ever to have a 30-30 season in back-to-back years. Something that it's a storied franchise. And I realized there was a time period where home runs weren't all the rage, but there was also a time period where home runs were the rage and stolen bases weren't. And Pete's doing both of them. Yeah. So like what he's doing, and on top of it, to be, the way he's hitting is I think impressive. So if we look at all qualified hitter, he's the 3rd best WRC plus in baseball, while being by far the best fielder. Yeah, that is unfreaking believable to consider what he's doing in that aspect. And if we look at just like, and it's not just WRC plus too, his WOBA is 4th in baseball. He's doing unbelievable things this year. I think as of right now, I think a conservative percentage on what he's going to be in terms of the MVP, I'd have him about 65%. I think he puts a couple more performances like that on display between now and the end of the season. I think he's probably got even a better idea. And if I saw a great question online today, I can't remember where I saw it on Twitter. Listen, I'm not trying to steal anybody's thought out there, but just to ask you a question, kind of put you on the spot for a little bit. But if you take Shohei Ohtani off the Dodgers and you take Pete Crow-Armstrong off the Cubs, who's better? Like, what team's set up better right now? And so I thought that question, I figured I'd bounce it to you. Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a legitimate argument. He's the offensive numbers are obviously Pete's are better, but Shohei's are similar. And then you're also taking away like Andy Pages' defensive profile in center field, and then some. Yeah. That I think the Dodgers would take a hit. And for me, the MVP has always been really like a narrative award. Like that's when I look back at it, that's like, okay, what happened in that season of baseball? And I think it's like Shohei has been the story for many, many years. That's not necessarily changing, but this is maybe the least Shohei-ist year that we've had. Yeah. And I really think Pete has, especially with he wants the light, right? He's not shying away from it as some other guys do. And I really think he's taking that narrative, and you're really seeing him try to maybe not face of baseball yet. He's 23, but he's definitely like not shying away from that, which I think helps your MVP case for sure.
Yeah. And listen, I'll be the first one to complain about small sample stats and like leverage stats and everything like that, because they really are, I find them at times to be a meaningless stat when we're talking about like, does clutch exist? I don't believe clutch exists. I'll throw that out there for anybody out there. Feel free to @me in the comments. Find me on social media on Blue Sky and Twitter. Like, please, like, yell at me for what I'm about to say, but I don't believe that clutch exists. I very much believe good players are good players, bad players are bad players, and you just equal it all out. It will just find its way. However, you brought up a great point of a narrative story as the MVP being a narrative story. So if we want the narrative story and we look at their splits and we're talking about, clutchiness or however you want to throw that, so far in the season, Shohei Ohtani has a 66 WRC plus in high leverage. Now, again, like I said, I don't think that means that Shohei Ohtani isn't a clutch hitter. But if we want to talk that narrative, Pete Crow-Armstrong has a 209 WRC plus in high leverage. It goes up. Low leverage, 134. Medium leverage, 163. WRC plus and high leverage, a 209 with a 479 WOBA. That's your narrative right there. Like Pete hits the big home run this year. Shohei hasn't. And, part of that is just the Dodgers are just a really good team. So they have less high leverage situations when you're winning games like that. But there's a narrative story that you can kind of wrap your head around if you want to make that argument.
Yeah. I mean, I would somewhat agree and somewhat disagree on the clutch thing. Cause I agree in the sense that I don't think players get better in those moments. Like, I don't think that gene exists that a player is going to perform above what he can do in that moment. But I do think the inverse is true, where like things can get tight, things can speed up on guys, heartbeats can get pretty fast. And in bigger situations, guys play below their talent level. And the guys that we see as clutch players are the guys who can maintain their same talent level and keep that slow heartbeat. And I just think we keep seeing him do that over and over and over again in these situations where you would think for a 23-year-old, it would speed up on him a little bit. The moment we get a little too big for him, it just like it hasn't happened this year.
No, he's been fantastic. It's just been one of those special seasons. And we're watching it because I just don't think you see somebody kind of lap the field so much in terms of positional war. Like I said, he's at 8.2. His next highest is 5.9. And I guess he's probably a little lucky. Aaron Judge is kind of dinged up this year. So like, we're not seeing like a special.
Hey, that's part of the MVP race, right?
Right. Staying healthy, availability.
Yeah,
we don't, you can't rack up WAR if you're on the injured list.
You can't.
And
he's going out there every day.
Every day. In terms of, and that's probably another thing. Only Brian Reynolds has played more baseball games than Pete Crow-Armstrong this year. And I think that's impressive. And only, this is something I didn't realize. Only 2 players have more plate appearances than Pete Crow-Armstrong. Do you have any guess as to who those 2 are? One will be shocking to you. The other is probably just a dart throw.
I mean, it feels like Shohei would be one of the answers.
Nope. It is not. No, it is Gunnar Henderson and Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman has more plate appearances than Pete Crow-Armstrong this year. Let that sink in. Didn't have that one on my radar.
Yeah, because Pete didn't always hit at the top of the lineup at the start of the year.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, Bregman has 3 less games, but 562 plate appearances, and Pete Crow-Armstrong has 561.
Well, that'll change soon.
Yeah, Michael Busch, 5th in the league. So the Cubs have 3, 4, 2, 3, and 5 in terms of plate appearances, which is wild. So let's transition a little bit. I think we probably pretty much in agreement. I think if things end today, I think it's a Pete Crow-Armstrong argument on MVP. But that's going to bring us to the playoff rotation. And that, I think that's an important thing to talk about. And I don't want to count my chickens before, they hatch or anything like that. But where the Cubs are situated right now, they're staring the barrel again, the barrel of the playoffs down right now. And just, looking at those playoff odds where the Cubs are at, this is using Fangraphs and everything. But as of right now, to make the playoffs, they're at a 98.8% chance. And never say never, but it looks like today they're definitely going to be playing in the playoffs. So
it does, yeah.
2 questions for you, Jeremy, when it comes to playoff rotation, because I think we're looking at 2 separate playoff rotations in a 3-game set and in a 5-game set. In a 3-game set, you got 3 pitchers. In a 5-game set, you got to have 4. So for you, If you're going into a 3-game set tomorrow, who's your 3-game rotation? And then if you have to expand that out, who's that fourth man that's going to add to that five-game series if the Cubs can make it through that wild card round?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think Shota is there, and I think Kevin Gausman is there. I think that's what you kind of pay for those guys for. That third spot, I think might depend on who we're playing, and what the platoon looks like, whether it's Clay Holmes or Matt Boyd. With the other one probably bumping to the bullpen. That is probably where I would sit right now.
Okay.
Leaning towards probably actually Clay Holmes in the bullpen, just because he has a little bit more comfortability and experience there in the back end of a bullpen in playoffs. And then he would be the guy who bumps back into the rotation for me when it jumps to a 5 or 7 game.
See, I had a different look on that. Shota's my odd guy out on the 4. He's my 4th. I like Shota Imanaga a lot. I think when he can get a little extra rest, he's definitely better. But he's a razor's edge kind of guy.
Sure.
And I know you worked at. You said you've had some driveline experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Langland.
Yes.
But I'm a big Chris Langland fan, and he had a really great twit longer earlier this offseason about Shota Imanaga, and basically like the magic line for Shota is 91 miles an hour. At 91 miles an hour over, his fastball creates enough of a concern for a hitter that the split finger plays off of it. And under 91 miles an hour, it isn't. He is a razor's edge type of a pitcher. And when I go into the playoffs and I have somebody who has a home run issue that Shota has, and I like Shota Imanaga a lot, but we saw it last night, right? You look at last night, he had 20 whiffs, he had 10 strikeouts, and yet 1 walk, a bloop single, and a home run. And like that happens with Shota. And somebody like Randall Grichuk is a great matchup against Shota.
Yeah.
And I think unlike everybody else, Shota has this kind of like Achilles heel that I don't think Clay Holmes has, that I don't think Matthew Boyd has, that I don't think Kevin Gausman has, in that like there's just like razor edge. So if I'm setting up my playoff rotation, and yeah, if I'm playing like a team that's really bad against lefties, I might switch things around. Like the Phillies are really bad against lefties. So like I'm just kind of thinking like general thought. It's like Gausman's my guy. He's getting the ball on game 1. I think you didn't trade for him to not do that.
And he's got that pedigree. Yeah, that's right.
I don't think that the Cubs gave up Jefferson Rojas for Clay Holmes in the thought that he wasn't going to be in the playoff rotation. I maybe the math changes a little bit with Dansby. We'll talk his injury here in a little bit. But I think when we kind of look at Clay Holmes, I think the Cubs are definitely projecting him as a playoff guy. And then Matthew Boyd. I think there's just, he's got, if you're part of the 1060 chat, he's got that X dog in him. But that's like, he just does, like, he just has a little bit of that. We saw that in the playoffs last year. Shota is kind of like my odd guy out in that 3-game set, but I think in a 4-game set, especially with the way that the bullpen is playing out, like I think Shota's my 4th guy, but I'm not using him in a traditional sense. I'm gonna look at Shota and I'm gonna say, you got to get 12 outs. Pump that velocity up, get that over 91. You got 12 outs. I'm gonna go with an opener so that he misses the lefties. If we've got like a nasty lefty hitting lineup, say we're playing the Brewers, you want to avoid Chiriot and Contreras like right off the bat. Boom. I go opener, Rollison. I go, or Milner, whoever your lefty is that you feel really comfortable with. You got to get 4 outs, 3 outs. Shota for 12, and then it's the Ben Brown, Edward Cabrera, Justin Steele, like guys like right there behind him.
Right. I mean, that's the thing is I would say that's probably the case in either situation, like a 3-game or a 5-game, right? Like these guys are. I would say it's the case with all 4 of them, really. I mean, like a couple, like yes, Gausman and Holmes have maybe earned a little longer leashes, but like Shota, Boyd, those guys are a little home run prone, and I would be pretty quick to pull them, especially with the options that you have in the bullpen, because obviously like neither of us, we had different rotations, but neither of us had Edward Cabrera in our rotation. So like either he's not on the playoff roster, or which is a possibility at this point, or he's coming out of the bullpen and and you could use him, or in theory, you should be able to use him to get 6, 9, 12 outs in a big situation.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking on it. I think it's a weird. The Cubs are in such a weird situation with their pitching staff, with all of these like starters who are coming back who can't start for the rest of the season. That you just don't normally see. They're in such a weird situation that, like, right now, if you had to pick a weakness on the Cubs team, it's probably their bullpen. But like in 3 weeks, it might be like one of the best parts about the team when you think about Palencia coming back and Steele maybe coming back and Ben Brown coming back and like Edward Cabrera and supercharged like 2-inning outings. Like all of a sudden, like this bullpen starts to like build out into this like kind of like really fun hodgepodge of options that Craig Counsell can have. So like as excited as I am about getting to the playoffs, I think one of the most exciting things I have from today until the end of the season is just seeing how they mismatch that.
And this is why ostensibly why you're paying Craig Counsell as much money as you are, right? It's like, we're gonna give you this puzzle where we've got Shota, Boyd, Gausman, Holmes, Cabrera, you have Colin Ray, you have David Peterson, you've got a couple guys coming back from injury, you've got guys like Jacob Webb that have performed well this year, Zephyr John, who we just traded for. Go figure out how that lines up in the playoffs in a 3 or 5 or 7 game series. And that's a really difficult task with that amount of guys looking for longer innings, no real clear answer at the back end, like proven answer at the back end. So like, this is where, you prove that money is worth it. The only guy getting paid more is won back-to-back World Series. So
yeah. It's going to be fun to see where they go. So I think the Dansby Swanson thing is kind of hanging over the team right now. And that's it's something that we probably need to talk about because it's there was a time probably earlier in the season where I think a lot of fans, like, you told them that Dansby Swanson is going to miss like 6 weeks at the end of the season, they probably would have been pretty excited. Which I think that they are always wrong on that. Like, I'm a big I always admit this out loud. I like to admit all the things I'm wrong about out there. And when the Cubs had originally signed Dansby Swanson, my original read on that, and I'm sure many of you out there probably had the same original read, and I like to own up to my mistakes. My original read was Cubs are going with the cheapest option of the 4. They didn't want to pay up for Correa. They didn't want to pay up for Turner. They didn't want to pay up for Bogarts. They went with Swanson. That's the cheapest option. Looking back on it, absolutely meathead stupid take on my end. Missed that. Probably the best contract of all 4 of them. Easy. He has been phenomenal. And even on those moments when, like, the bat isn't always there, the glove doesn't sleep. He's a special defender.
And that's what they've paid for, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to give a contract that long, he has really like it's very difficult for him to provide zero value or be like a negative WAR player. Right. So like, even at the end of this contract, that he's going to be above water because at the very least, he's going to provide elite defense at a premium spot. Yeah,
he is. And so if you're out there and you're still complaining about the Dansby Swanson contract, I saw people earlier this year that would have DFA'd him.
Earlier this year, 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. And listen, when it happens again next year, I'm gonna call you ridiculous again. So not you, but anybody out there who says the DFA Dansby Swanson, absolutely insane take. Yeah. Like, the dude, he is so much better than I expected him to be. And I was wrong 4 years ago when I was sitting on Pro Sports Daily, flipping my lid about the Cubs signing him. I was wrong about that. I like to own up to my mistakes. But now we're looking at this point where I think a lot of us should be sitting there and trying to figure out, like, where we go. So I guess I have a couple questions on it for you, see where you're thinking about it. How confident do you feel about Nico Horner at shortstop? And I like, he's a great defensive second baseman, but how are you feeling about him at short for the next month?
I'm feeling okay at short for the next month. I am. That goes a little different direction which is entirely possible at this point, if we're also talking some playoffs. Because you never know with an oblique that, it could be 4 weeks, it could be 6, it could be 8. And if it's on the longer end of that, unfortunately, then I think you lose a lot of what really gives this Cubs team its floor with that defense, just because you're downgrading up the middle, because you're downgrading at shortstop and you're downgrading at second base.
Yes.
Nico having to move across. So it is a real bummer, and I think it is totally fine for regular season. He is an above average shortstop. But like, I'm in the midst of writing an article for the site about the Cubs' historic defense, and that article doesn't exist if it's Nico at short and not Dansby. So just really hopeful that we're on the shorter end of that scale for timetable for return.
Yeah, and when you look at the Cubs pitching situation right now, they traded for Clay Holmes in part because he gets a lot of ground balls, and Dansby Swanson is a major part of that aspect. And I like I'm a big Pedro Ramirez guy. I like him a lot, but like you really don't know what you're getting fully with a young player like that playing every day. Defensively, I think he's better at third base than he is at second. But
the metrics show that, but he's not been bad at second either.
No, he's not been bad at all.
Yeah.
I from everything I've heard from a couple people who know far more about how the Cubs feel about Pedro Ramirez, I do think the organization also just likes him a little bit better defensively at third base than second base. I think his profile is just a little bit better there. The great news is that like even if I think you think he's a better third baseman, because I do, I think he's a better third baseman than second baseman. He's a fine second baseman.
Right.
He's perfectly fine out there. But you go from a perfectly fine second baseman and maybe a slightly above average shortstop. With Dansby there, then you have one of the 3 to 5 best defensive shortstops in baseball, plus one of the 3 best defensive second basemen in baseball. That just upgrades your entire
with the chemistry that they have with each other, right?
Yeah,
that's a force elevator too. So and you do have Matt Shaw starting a rehab assignment tomorrow, it sounds like.
Yeah, which is good.
That's helpful because there's
options.
Possibly a wall coming for Pedro Ramirez, as much as I have enjoyed watching him play. Getting everyday reps going forward and being relied on, he's going to see a lot more breaking balls, and he hasn't done great with breaking balls. So
right,
we'll see, how the league figures him out and how he adjusts to that. But in August, September of a playoff race is not really where you want to find out how a 22-year-old is going to adjust to the league.
No, not always the best. Not always the best thing to find out. And the time to find out. Thankfully, if there's by keeping Pedro Ramirez, they're in a much better place than had they traded Pedro Ramirez at the deadline. And I know
certainly
I had talked about, Matt Shaw and Pedro Ramirez kind of giving the Cubs a little bit of an option to move one or the other. And now having Pedro here, as much as Reed Detmers is awesome or something like that, I would shudder to think about the Cubs starting James Triantos or Owen Miller in the infield for the next 5 to 6 weeks, especially if it got to the point where they got into the playoffs and, you're looking at your opening day, your playoff roster and, Matt Shaw's wrist mate, as much as it's good to see Matt Shaw coming back from a rehab, he's had multiple wrist injuries. You have no idea what that's going to do to the power in the interim on him. And, a greatly diminished Matt Shaw or a James Triantos or Owen Miller at second base probably is not a very awesome thought going into a playoff series, especially if, God forbid, you're playing the Brewers and Jacob Mizorowski's facing you the other side.
Yeah, I mean, James Triantos looked pretty overmatched, and the fact that on that, when an injury happened, he went down instead of getting a larger role. Kind of tells you how the Cubs felt about his initial cup of coffee. And Owen Miller coming up is interesting in that there is a real lack of depth there. That's the next guy up after Pedro Ramirez really is a little concerning.
Yeah, it really is. So hopefully they can survive. It's such a bummer not seeing Dansby out there. So fingers crossed he comes back. Obliques are tricky little things. So the hope is that he comes back and he's ready to go. We'll have to see where that goes. Probably a good transition into our minor league report. Jeremy, I know you're a big minor league guy, as well as I am. We just had our crowdsourced member top 20 drop. I had an article come out about 24 hours ago. We've had great discussions. A couple of reminders. If you're listening to us right now on YouTube and you have not clicked the subscribe button, do that. We're here every week. It's either me or Jeremy or me and Mitch. We run a nice little podcast here. I think we do a great job. Myself, I give ourselves an award. But I think we do an awesome job. If you want to be notified, just like and subscribe. It really helps us. I didn't realize how much it helped us until I was on this end of things. And now anytime I watch a video, I like and subscribe. So I'm a good YouTuber now.
Those aren't just empty words.
Right. Yeah, they're not empty words. I notify me when I want to watch something. Yeah. So yes, that really helps us out. But also join Northside Baseball on the website end of things. We have some wonderful discussions. We have a real nerdy, dorky side of things. And if you're listening to the Northside Baseball podcast right now and you're excited about the minor league report, you're a nerd and a dork just like me and Jeremy. And we've had some great conversations. 21 comments on my most recent article, just talking about a top 20 list. And that's awesome. We're glad to talk to you. So join us with that. But with that top 20 list, we had a couple of people join the list, a couple of people new. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to bring it up to you, Jeremy, and where you would maybe have these guys ranked. So when we're looking at the top, I think everybody right now is kind of under the same agreement that like it's Josiah Hartshorn and then the field. So I think everybody can get on board there. Where I think we've had some really good discussion on Northside. I've had some great discussion with a few people, and I think bringing it here is probably a good place. I think that like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 area gets kind of interesting when you're looking at like Owen Ayers, Cade Townsend, Jackson Wiggins, Kane Kepley. I think all can kind of fit in that little area. So, Jeremy, who would you have as your number 2 prospect in the system today? Who would you put in that 2 spot?
Yeah, I'd probably put Owen Ayers in that 2 spot.
Me too.
Yeah, just level of production at the level of the minor leagues that he's at. I struggle with putting a guy like maybe Cade Townsend debuts next year and it just makes me sound like an idiot. But like guy has not yet pitched professional baseball. I wouldn't put him above. I wouldn't put him 2. I wouldn't put him above these guys without having thrown a professional pitch yet. And Jackson Wiggins has struggled a bit this year. And then I think both of those outfielders, Conrad debuted super late and has been fine. And Kepley is some people's, cup of tea. And if he's your cup of tea, I could see you making a pretty strong argument for him at 2 over Ayers, but that's maybe the only argument that I can see over Ayers at 2, really. Yeah.
I think I could probably buy an argument on Ethan Conrad based on his last couple of weeks because he finally looks healthy and
he does look good.
Bad ball data. The bad ball data looks really good. Yeah. At Northside, the crowdsourcing did have Cade Townsend at number 2. I would not have him at 2. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I have Ayers 2, and right now I've got Townsend in the 3 spot. 4 is Jackson Wiggins, 5 Conrad, 6 Kepley. Kepley's just not my cup of tea completely. Yeah. I will say this: I've heard some things that maybe suggest I might be a little bit low on Kepley. There's some fans in the organization on Kepley, maybe more so than I am, and kind of. I've over the last 30 days, a lot of my prospect knowledge has changed greatly. A month ago, I had Jefferson Rojas as my number 1. I had Josiah Hartshorn as my 2. 30 days later, I probably wouldn't have Rojas in my top 3. Like he might have been 3A, he might have been 3B, right there. Just based on the way that the Cubs treated him and some of the things I've kind of heard about how the Cubs viewed Rojas. So Kepley feels like he might be like the reverse Rojas here, where I'm not so high on Kepley, but like the organization loves them some Kane Kepley.
Yeah, they've been pretty aggressive with him for sure.
They really have. Yes and no. They sat him in South Bend for way too long. Like he's
Yes.
got like a bit of a sore thumb. You were like, why is he sitting there? And I know there have been some speculation that maybe they were trying to like boost his numbers up. But the flip side is maybe you don't want teams to like know he can hit like AA pitching right now, and you don't want to trade him at the deadline. Sure. Which I thought was some interesting stuff on both ends of that. And those are coming from people that are far smarter and far more knowledgeable than I am on the situation.
And with the less minor league teams, every step up the ladder's, a big step, like a much bigger step than it used to be. So, getting up to AA, it is very possible they felt like he was going to be too exploited by velocity or certain things like that. And like, yeah, you're putting up these numbers here, but like, we need you to hit XYZ check marks before we feel comfortable with you going up.
Yeah. The other thing, like I said, the thing I heard is that it might actually be the flip side. The Cubs thought he was going to be too good for AA, and they were afraid teams were going to demand him at the deadline. They didn't want to trade him. And listen, I'm reporting that from somebody who knows way more than I do. Okay. That's from somebody who that's not me. Speculation. That's from somebody who is far smarter than I am on these things. And I want to say too much about it, but like it was, if it's coming from him, I took notice of it. So
that feels crazy to intentionally deflate a prospect value.
It does feel a little crazy, but you know what? I think the argument is they didn't want to trade him at the deadline. And they think that maybe after a couple months in AA, his value league wide boosts a little bit more. It's kind of the argument that I had heard. It could be the opposite side, that they weren't afraid of the numbers. When it comes down to it, though, agree with Owen Ayers. Everything I've heard, and this is the way they acted, and everything I've heard from again people who know more than I do. I don't know anybody in the Cubs organization, but there are people that I get to talk to every once in a while who do. The general consensus on Owen Ayers is this organization loves Owen Ayers like a lot. And so that conversation, back to it, was I think that the gap between Ayers and Hartshorn is smaller than the gap between whoever you have at third and Ayers. Like I think that gap is wider. And if I were looking like league wide right now, and this is based on how the Cubs treated Owen Ayers at the deadline, which was basically hands off. Like I'm not trading him. Like they really kind of.
It was more than that. They also removed a blocker in front of him. Not that Yeah. They did. Moises Ballesteros a blocker in terms of his blocking ability behind the plate and his ability to block someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Catching position. But that move also indicates how strongly they feel about Ayers.
Yeah, and that they traded him to the organization that we thought Ayers would have gone to, which was the Angels. In a Detmers or a Soriano trade.
Yeah.
But I know that the Cubs really like Owen Ayers. And I think if I'm not trying to buy the hype too much at this point, but like I think he's a top 75 prospect in all of baseball, is where I would put him. And I think the only thing that's really holding him back from being like a top 25 guy, I mean, if you just take all the data, you just take everything, is his age. Like if he was 23,
I was just going to say, if he's 22, he's a top 10 prospect.
Oh, if he's 22, he might be the top 1 prospect in baseball. But even at like if he was 24, he's probably like a top 50 guy, like for sure. But sitting there at like top, like I think he's probably, and from the way that the Cubs treated him, they view him as a top 50 to 75 prospect. Because if you look at the way that the Soriano trade went down, Arjun Nimala is roughly a top 50-ish prospect, depending on the industry source that you're looking at right there.
Sure.
And, the Angels basically asked for Owen Ayers in that spot for a pitcher. And I mean, listen, I think if the Cubs would have been okay with it, that trade would have been done. And from what the Cubs basically have said, and I think it rings true. And this isn't to knock anybody's reporting on it, because I know there was some confusion on the reporting. It doesn't sound like the Cubs got particularly close to like finalizing one of these deals. And I think if they didn't get close, that probably says not really all that interested in trading Ayers in that kind of a deal.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that.
Yeah, so
they view him, it seems very clearly, as their catcher of the future.
Yes,
it might even be as early as now. I mean, Carson Kelly's got like an option for next year, so
yeah,
I could see them, picking that option up, and he's their third catcher and sits in AAA for a decent amount of the season. And then next year, the year after that is his full time. But it does seem like that's his job to lose for sure at this point.
Yeah, I have a feeling that he's probably the 2027 1B catcher to Miguel Amaya. It's my guess right now, but we'll have to see on that. Another player that I wanted to talk to you about, and I don't know if you caught this, but earlier today, the Cubs promoted Luke Allwood to South Bend, which was that setting off some like real good emergency bells for me. They don't, normally you don't see college pitchers see much action at all of their draft year.
Correct.
And not only has Allwood been going like 3+ innings in his goes, he's looked phenomenal at Myrtle Beach. The stuff is popping. And I didn't know what your take was on Allwood, if you've been following it at all. I've had a chance to watch a couple of his goes at Myrtle. And I've come away impressed, but I didn't know where you have been sitting on him or if you had a chance to look at him yet.
Yeah, when you kind of sent over the list of topics and minor leaguers, I was going through just looking at this year's draft and if any of them had actually played, because it was a very pitching heavy draft, and the industry norm over the past 10 years has been, guys generally don't pitch in their draft year. After their high school college seasons, they just kind of come to the complex and tweak some stuff, throw bullpens. So I was really surprised to see him like clearly in plans, not just like, oh, we're going to give him an inning or two in complex ball. Like, we're going to work on some stuff in a bullpen. That he's going to get an inning or two in complex ball to see like how that stuff plays. This is like, we're sending him to an affiliate, and he's going 3 innings. Really interesting. I have not had a chance yet to like watch the stuff. But the way they're treating that is fascinating, because it's just not a thing really that has been done. And I'm sitting here in Seattle, so I could have easily seen him last year at Seattle U. But
listen, I think Major League Baseball is probably at a point where they kind of wish they probably would have watched more Seattle baseball too.
Maybe because Seattle's finest, Tarek Skubal.
Yes, yeah, but listen, bring him in, bring all the Seattle boys in. But I've every time I've watched him, I watched him twice so far, I've come away impressed, and I get it. Like, he's at Myrtle Beach right now, and he's facing some young kids. He probably faced older guys when he was at Seattle, but Seattle also is in the SEC. Right. Yeah, ish. Right. It's that we're not talking about somebody who blew away like, Texas, like was sitting at Texas A&M, faced the LSU lineup, faced Vanderbilt, like they're not sitting down facing these guys. But his stuff is really pop. He's got good run on his fastball. I really like his fastball. Good breaking ball. He throws a lot of strikes. And it's at Myrtle Beach without StatCast data. One, it's kind of hard to figure out if he's just bullying guys, because he's just bullying guys at this level, and that's possible. It's kind of hard to get accurate ideas on his stuff, but I mean, he's carrying 96 miles an hour, multiple innings right now. And this is after a college season. He certainly doesn't look like anything close to a 10th round underslot sign. Right. And a lot of times when you hear like 10th round underslot sign dominating lower minor leagues, it's like a guy who throws 91 miles an hour, but like dots his fastball in the corner, and like 19-year-old kids are getting beat up just from command. Right. He's not beating guys up with command right now. Right. He's beating guys up with stuff. Yeah.
That generally those guys aren't 6'5", 225 also. That's a size that you don't see from a 10th rounder beating up on lower competition.
No, he looked.
Yeah, all the signs look really good.
Yeah, he looks really good. I don't know if you also, just speaking on the same draft, have you had I know you haven't seen much of Allwood, but Chase Myers, the 9th round pick, also went in a game with Luke Allwood the other day. They threw 6 innings back to back, struck out 11 hitters combined. Yeah. It was some nasty stuff from both of them.
I was very intrigued to see if that was going to be a thing that was going to continue, or like at what point are they going to shut some of these guys down? But yeah, it does look pretty good from a couple of their recent draftees. Very rare.
I really liked Chase Myers. He started and went 3 innings. He did walk 3 hitters, so like I think it's important to point that out. I think he sat like 93, 96, but I think long term he's a 1 inning guy. Like I don't think this is like a starter. He's very much a reliever. But he was I think in terms of the entire draft, he was probably my favorite fun pick. He wasn't like, he's not the best pick that the Cubs made, but he was my favorite fun pick. And that's he reminds me a lot of, and this will pull back a couple of years for any of the real prospect sickos out there. But he reminds me on the mound, not necessarily stuff or anything like that, but his demeanor. He reminds me a lot of Cam Sanders. And I don't know if you had a chance to watch Cam Sanders, but he was a starting pitcher, moved to reliever who had a lot of attitude on the mound out of LSU. Never could throw enough strikes. That was always my bummer because he had some Kenny Powers type like celebrations on the mound, a little bit of Jeffrey Yan, it feels like. And Chase Myers kind of has that attitude, which is why he got kicked off the West Virginia team. Like he got punted off that team in March. As a Kentucky fan, West Virginia is a terrible program.
I was gonna say that's really all I knew about him was that he did not make, and that West Virginia team this year was pretty good.
Good team. Coaches, I can't stand how that coach runs that program.
And he wasn't a part of it. So that was an interesting. I think that is probably why that was my read on why he is throwing now, right? Like he missed out on a bunch of competitive innings because he didn't complete his college season. So I could see him finishing the year. He didn't quite surprise me as much as Allwood did.
Yeah, same here. Is there anybody on your radar that you're just like really excited about, that you like, maybe a little under the radar? Is there anybody that you're feeling good about right now?
So I have my eye on the Cubs, the Knoxville rotation.
Okay.
They went 6-man rotation this last month, which they did not do it any other affiliate. And like all of those dudes shoved pretty much, like 5 of the 6 have been shoved over the last month. And that's a very interesting development to have in AA, where you feel pretty confidently, because I think most teams would probably roll out a 6-man rotation if they actually felt comfortable with 6 starters that they had. And that tells you something. So that my eyes is on the Knoxville rotation, and clearly the Cubs feel some kind of way about them if they're going to expand to 6-man rotation and not want to bump any of these guys to the bullpen yet. So I was very intrigued by that.
That's a really good observation. I think when you're looking at the system right now, so many eyes have been on Iowa for the last year because that's where the names have been. Kevin Alcantara, James Triantos, Moises Ballesteros, Pedro Ramirez this year, Owen Ayers. Like that's where your eyes have been. If you look down the ballot right now, there's a lot of really interesting players in South Bend. That's where you got Josiah Hartshorn. That's where you had Kane Kepley. With the IFA guys kind of bumping up now, that's where Dernish Valdez is and Fernando Cruz is right now. Jose Escobar is one of my favorite down ballot prospects out there, and I'll probably I'll gush about him here in a second. But Knoxville, just especially the pitching side of Knoxville, I feel as though it's gone kind of underreported on, and there probably aren't like top end arms there, but there are interesting guys there,
right? A decent amount of depth, and like you have Brooks Capel, who I think was the highest one that's on that list that is there, and a couple guys who are 25, 26. But these, we're seeing a guy like Jacob Webb in the bullpen. If you make your major league debut at 26 and have 6 years of control, you basically get controlled for the entirety of your prime, which is a pretty valuable acquisition, if you will, as opposed to like a guy who comes up at 21 or 22 is great, but then he's going to hit free agency before you really get it, the prime years. So there is something to say for Owen Ayers being 25. A lot of these, AA pitchers being a little bit on the older side as depth pieces, but those aren't bad guys to have in the org.
No,
they may not be top 100 prospects, but there are a lot of those type of guys in this org that can definitely have like a solid 3-4 year stretch as 40-man roster guys.
Yeah, and I mean that's a lot of times that's where you build your bullpen out of. That's where your bullpen depth comes out of, and we've seen, I think over the last couple of years, the Cubs have to get to this weird place where they're like, I don't know, maybe Drew Pomeranz or something. And it'd be nice if they could pull from their own organization a little bit more often than having to go find some guy who really hasn't made a major league inning in half a decade to kind of save the season.
Yeah. No offense, Jake Woodford, right?
Yeah, no offense, Jake Woodford. So I'll finish up with my favorite down ballot guy, which is Jose Escobar. And I don't know if you've followed much about Jose Escobar, but he popped up on my radar earlier this season, and it's the very vibe that I get on Jose Escobar. He reminds me a lot of Pedro Ramirez in many ways. Pedro Ramirez was a player who all he did was hit for years and years. And the one thing that we kind of always, and I did this too, we always questioned was like, is there enough power? Like, am I really buying this? Like, he's not a huge guy. Like, where does this go from here? Right. And you keep him like kind of in that 9 to 10 range in your prospect rankings. You know, you kind of just enough to kind of hang on to a top 10 and be interesting. But like, he was never good enough to be like, this is a guy who's exciting. But Jose Escobar has given me that feeling. He's 21. So he's a little, he's not super young for South Bend, but he's not so old that you can write it off. But he's listed at 5'8", 165. With all IFA stuff, that's way outdated. That's not how big he is. But he's also not big. He's also, my guess is 5'10" max. He's got a beautiful left-hand swing, makes so much contact. His bat-to-ball skills are great. And all the reports on his exit velocities are solid. Like, this is not a left-handed, like, high-contact, weak hitter. This is somebody who has the ability, I think, to find 10 home runs, like, in professional baseball, like at most levels, if you can kind of squeeze it out of him. He is a left fielder, so you're not looking at like this is more of like a Stephen Kwan type of a look on an outfielder.
You don't think he's staying in the dirt?
No, I think he's an outfielder. From what I've read on his like his details, he's an outfielder. He's been playing outfield mostly in South Bend. Like that's where he's played most of his time. I think he's kind of one of these guys who plays like, if you had to play him at second base, you play him at second base. But I don't think that's where he is, especially when you look at the kind of where the organization is. Like, I don't see a path to beating out Shaw or Pedro Ramirez in an infield spot anyways. Yeah. So I think long-term, he's probably an outfielder anyways, but I think he's really fun. I always kind of get attached to somebody down ballot. And, last year was Ivan Brettauer. This year it was Ty Southazine. I like Ty Southazine. I think he's a lot of fun. Bummed that they had to trade him. And I get why they had to trade him. Listen, it's okay. I'm okay with it. But I've had to find a new guy who is a little under the radar that I love. And I find he's kind of a weirdo. And I mean that in the best way. I love weird baseball players. I love guys who do things a little bit out of the norm. And Jose Escobar gives me that feeling. I think that's why I like Pedro Ramirez so much. He's kind of a weird baseball player.
We love the outliers. I love the outliers. Guys are just boring, like cool. You're 6'3", like great. You got a lot of athleticism. Give me the guy who's 5'8".
Yeah, give me somebody who's my height. Yeah. Hit a home run and be 5'10" like I am, and I'm in. But I like Jose Escobar. I think he's a lot of fun. So that's my down ballot guy. And then I'm just gonna throw out one last thing because I have to. I haven't gotten to mention him one time on our show in a year and a half. He's my favorite prospect in the whole system. It's my white whale. Cole Franklin's back at Iowa, and he's striking guys out. He's walking everybody too. But I'm gonna ignore that for a minute. Dude's battled so much adversity. I still think like he could be a middle reliever at the major league level. He's been my favorite prospect for like 7 years. And every time he starts to just look decent, he blows his arm out. And he's back again. So Captain Ahab Ross over here is sailing the ship again for Moby Dick. His Cole Franklin. He's had a couple of fun outings and a couple of outings where he's had a lot of walks. He's 21 innings pitched, 16 strikeouts, 9 walks isn't particularly great. But
this is what you get coming back from an arm injury, right? Like that's the command is the last thing to come back, and he was never like a true command.
No,
right?
No, he wasn't. The good news though is that even though the command isn't there, it seems like there is enough there that you can kind of squint on it. The velocity isn't what it used to be, but he's throwing a four seam, he's throwing a sinker, he's throwing a changeup, he's throwing a curveball, he's throwing a slider. We've got a lot of different pitches and enough movement profile that like you can squint and see a mid reliever there.
If I squint, I can see Gavin Hollowell.
Yeah, I would take a Gavin Hollowell. That's my Moby Dick right here. I'm perfectly fine with it. I haven't gotten to talk prospect sicko Cole Franklin, who's not a top 40 prospect in the organization. And I needed to throw it out there before we jump into our last thing.
Fair.
So Jeremy, before we head on out for the day, I think it's probably important just to kind of take our feelings on the NL Central. Where the Cubs sit today, it's not impossible for this team to win the division. They're 4.5 games back for the Brewers. They still have 7 games on the schedule with Milwaukee. How do you feel about the possibility, like about a division? And do you think, and this is my question, do you think it's worth it to empty the tank to try to get there? Or is it maybe a situation where emptying the tank to try to make up 4.5 games might not always be in the best kind of feeling for the Cubs? And when I say empty the tank, that means kind of pushing some of these guys like Palencia, Steele, Brown to get back a little bit quicker to do that. Or like where would you sit? Because I have to feel as though that's a question that the Cubs have to answer themselves.
100%. And there's no doubt in my mind they're doing that on a case-by-case basis. What pushing certain guys like that means. Justin Steele is a little closer to free agency than some of the other guys. So like maybe they are comfortable pushing him a little bit faster than a Ben Brown, who's had neck stuff and things like that. I was a lot more positive about the odds before the Dansby injury to come and take the division. I do think it is worth emptying the tank, depending on what that means. Certain guys with certain injuries, like not just you don't want to push them back because they could re-injure themselves and get hurt, but like they're just maybe they're not ready. Like they're not ready to be thrown in a high leverage situation. Like the Steels, the Ben Browns, like those guys are going into the bullpen. So if they're not ready for like a high leverage situation, emptying the tank may actually like backfire on you a little bit by trying to push these guys a little too fast. But I would empty the proverbial tank. I do think it's that important to win the division as opposed to locking down a wild card. And I think the Cubs acted that way at the deadline, right? Like
rightfully so.
The playoff odds were pretty high at the deadline also. And they still pushed a lot of chips in to try to win the division, which again, up until the Dansby injury, felt like it wasn't that far off. And it feels a little further off now than it did, which really stinks. But I don't think it's impossible by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I don't either. There are little dreams in my head of a reverse 2018 where the Cubs come barreling down in September, take those games against the Brewers and kind of stick it to them on that end. Because 2018 sucked. But I'm with you on it. I don't think it's impossible, but it felt like a week ago it was a heck of a lot more likely than it does today. It's the Brewers also have some just like magic just to kind of keep winning baseball games. It feels like. So that's about where I'm at right now. If we're looking again at FanGraphs and we have to remember these are projections, these do change. But if we're looking at the projected standings of the teams and everything like that, the Cubs are sitting in a 92 win space and they've got the Brewers at 97. So it's probably difficult to still get there. I do think that the Cubs very well could win more than 92. I think that feels a little low maybe with how well they've played and with the new pitching additions that they have. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think it's like 20% maybe at like best if they can catch them. And I to be honest with you, I'm just pulling that number straight out of my tail on it. That's
7 head-to-head, or is it what's the split home and away?
I believe it is. Let me look at it because I don't have that information off the top of my head, but I'll be able to figure it out within a moment. I think it's split Cubs home more than away, but I want to double check. It is Sorry, it's 6 games remaining. And it is, I thought it was 7. It's 3 home, 3 away in the first week, literally the first week, first 9 days of September.
Yeah, that'll be massive, and that's coming up soon. So that'll have
to sorry, I take it back. It is 7. I didn't look at August 2026. It's 7. I thought it was 7, and then I freaked myself out because I couldn't press the back arrow. It's 4 at home, 3 on the road, starting on the last day of August into August 9th. So it's
all guaranteed without Dansby, because if he comes back, it's going to be at the end of the month. So
very end of the month.
That's I mean, that'll be, we'll have a very good idea after that stretch.
Yeah. August 10th, we'll probably know.
Yeah. But it's in front of them right there, right? If you win 5 of those 7, you're putting yourself in a really good opportunity to take the division from them.
Really are. So we're going to get ready to be wrapping up here, which we really thank all you guys for listening to us once again. If you have not subscribed, if you are not getting those notifications, please make sure that you do that. Like I said in the middle of the show, I'm going to say it again at the end. It really helps us out. We think we do a great job here. We wouldn't do it if we don't think we get a great job. We want to make sure as many people can find us as possible. Anybody who's a dork that wants to talk about their 42nd best prospect in the Cubs system, we want you guys to be a part of this. We want you to be on Northside Baseball on the website. We want you to read our articles and talk with us. So thank you all for joining us here today. And we'll be back with you next week, either me and Jeremy or me and Mitch. So can't wait. And thank you for everybody for joining us.
Thanks, guys.